I unenthusiastically trudged up the cold stone steps from the dungeon crypt hidden beneath Turk Street. I was mumbling obscenities under my perpetually cotton-mouthed breath. I had no way of knowing, but I was certain that all the clocks up above were currently lost, residing or being held captive somewhere in the dreaded hours of purgatory nothingness void between last call and that proverbial darkest hour right before the crack of dawn. This is, allow me to explain, visiting the crypts at Turk Street Studios for any amount of time was like visiting the crypts at Turk Street Studios for any amount of time. Which is to say, this Freemason-built structure was placed on grid lines parallel to other high-energy locations around the world, making it such that the passage of time seemed to fluctuate at random speeds, as it functioned as a portal to, or as a rip in space-time continuum. And when you were leaving the crypts, emerging into the world up above, you had no idea how much time had passed, and the time of day or night was always a sometimes devastating surprise. Of course, the simpler, less intriguing, and less mystical explanation for this phenomenon is most certainly because of the fact that the crypts, as the name suggests, are underground with no windows or clocks. This was a time before cell phones, and none of the residents or visitors wore watches. I would not have left the comfort and relative safety of the crypts at this particular moment in time were it not for the 300-pound gorilla that had set up camp and was currently building a fortress and compound on my back, waking me up and demanding I venture to the world up above and get him some damn breakfast. An experience had, if nothing else, taught me I'd have no peace until I complied. Last time I made this journey to the iron gate at the top of the stairs, I found red and blue flashing lights, and the Grand Imperial Guard questioning a crew of zombies that had set up shop there selling crack. The guard had placed the zombies in irons and had them on their knees, attempting with little success to extract information from them, getting nothing but grunts and snarls from the undead entrepreneurs. Seeing the flashing lights, I slowed my pace and crept up the last flight of stairs when I spotted the package the zombies were attempting to hide under the iron gate. I had only to creep over, pick it up, turn around, and postpone my exodus for another week. Alas, the gods were not looking down on me this morning. There was no bonus package of alchemy waiting for me to find. The zombies that the guard had taken away last week were already back or have been replaced by an identical crew. When I inquired of the time from the corner mead merchant, my worst fears were confirmed. The clocks were indeed residing in the 3-hour block of no man's land after last call and before 6 a.m., when the Latin dope merchants start their day. During this time period, not only was alcohol unattainable, but you couldn't even buy any dope, except for crack. For that, there was a ghoul or zombie on every corner, 24/7. This shouldn't have bothered me too much, as I didn't have any money to buy anything anyway. So I had 3 hours to come up, so I started in a light jog towards the Western Addition in Haight-Ashbury, past the orcs, vampires, ghouls, and zombies that inhabit the Tenderloin. It was trash day in the Western Addition, and I never failed to come up with enough second-hand relics to sell or trade for dope anytime I went there. The children of nobles and aspiring young clerics with trust funds occupied most of the flats in Haight-Ashbury while attending the nearby universities, and when they moved, they discarded practically all their belongings and household accoutrements at the curbside. This was my destination. After only 3 stops, I decided I had unearthed enough second-hand arcana and relics, so I began the trek back to the Tenderloin. At 4:30 in the morning at the bus stop at Eddy and Van Ness, people of all walks of life began to slowly arrive at the bus stop. If you didn't know any better, you would assume they were all waiting for the bus on their way to work. Ghouls, zombies, goblins, orcs, clerics, mages, vampires, nobles and peasants alike. Until at 5 a.m., a cab would pull up and drop off a Latin dope merchant. He would instantly be swarmed from both sides of the street, surrounded and eventually forming a fast-moving single-file line. And as many as 40 people would line up and be served, and the line dispersed in under 2 minutes. At 4:30 a.m., I stopped at the concrete ramp in front of the State of California building to take inventory of my spoils. I had a Samsonite briefcase, a large brass Buddha, a hand-carved ebony sushi bento box, a Hugo Boss leather jacket, a large Panasonic dual cassette boombox, and 3 coffee table books: Valley of the Kings, Egypt, the Vikings, Raiders, and Explorers, and 25 years of Rolling Stone magazine, the covers of Rolling Stone. Knowing that I could sell the coffee table books at Aardvark Books on Church Street when they opened at 10 a.m., and there was an antique store nearby in the Mission District that would certainly take the brass Buddha and the bento box. So I took these items and placed them in the briefcase and stashed it in the bushes. I took the leather jacket and the boombox and headed towards Eddie and Van Ness, arriving 15 minutes before 5 a.m., and began attempting to hawk my wares. I spotted a pale, rail-thin vampire leaning against a post. "Dude, I've got a killer Hugo Boss leather jacket and a dual cassette boombox for sale."
"Let me see the leather jacket."
"Yeah, certainly, my man. Here you go."
"I'm afraid the arms are too short. Damn, I really wanted it to fit."
"Yeah, that's too bad, man. What about the boombox?" The vampire pulled his hood back from his ears, revealing red foam rubber headphones on his ears.
"I'm really a Walkman guy."
I spotted a goblin and zombie couple sitting at the bus stop. Hit them up, but they declined. A brutish orc dressed in a purple tracksuit inquired about the boombox. "Brother, I want the radio right now. I got money for you." How much were you thinking?" "I'll give you $10 right now." "Dude, I was hoping to get at least 20 for that." "Man, I got $10 real money right now. You're not gonna get better than that." "I apologize, friend, but I'm gonna hold out for 20. My options were quickly fading when a grizzled, whiskey-throated rogue leaned out of a brand-new hunter green Buick Skylark.
"Hey, kid, let me see that leather jacket and ghetto blaster. Come here."
I quickly ran over to the parked car.
"Get in, kid."
I surveyed the situation and saw a pair of aluminum crutches sticking out of the rear passenger window, and upon getting in the car, I saw that the old rogue's right leg was cut off just above the knee. I got in and held up the leather jacket for him to inspect. He took it from me and replied,
"Fuck yeah, I'll take this from you."
He threw it in the back seat, and in a voice as rough as 40 grit sandpaper replied,
"I'm one-legged Jack. I took this car from my brother. It's a fucking rental. We've been up partying for 2 weeks. He's at the hotel. I rented the hotel, he rented the car. But he went to sleep in the hotel. Fucking lightweight. He rented the car and I rented the hotel and he's asleep in the hotel. It's only fair that I should take the car. I wanted to get some more dope. I already got some crack. You smoke crack? You want a hit? You got a lighter?"
I reached in my pocket and pulled out a black Bic and handed it to Jack. He pulled out a straight glass pipe thoroughly caked with resin, fired up the lighter and hit the pipe once and exhaled a cloud of smoke, put another rock on the pipe and melted it with the lighter and handed them both to me, and began a run-on stream of consciousness rant. I looked around before hitting the pipe once and then put them both down, piping the lighter down, when suddenly he stopped his rant and hit me in the shoulder, pointing at a Latin dude walking by the car with a trail of people following him.
"Hey, that's my dude. Get him. Tell him to come here."
What about the money for the leather jacket?"
"Don't worry about that. I got you. Just get that guy."
I got out of the car and called the guy. "Hey, S.A." He turned around and I pointed at Jack. He came over to the car and squatted down next to the passenger door. Jack leaned over and placed his order. He took Jack's money and spitted out several marble-sized balloons of different colors into his hand and handed them to Jack. Got back in the car and Jack started it up and pulled into Eddy Street. As we turned onto Larkin, we sped past City Hall and all the creatures that were living in Civic Center Park across the street. We crossed Market Street and pulled into the parking lot of the 24-hour All-Star Donut. Jack looked out the window and pointed at an empty Coke can and said,
"Hey kid, get that can for me. Now get some water for us from the hose."
I got out of the car and grabbed the Coke can and an empty cup and rinsed it out and filled it up with water and handed them to Jack back at the car. He quickly ripped the can apart and pulled the aluminum sides off until he had only the bowl bottom of the can with a small strip of aluminum for a handle. He ripped open one of the large balloons and revealed a gram of black tar heroin wrapped in a clear plastic. He opened it and placed it in the bottom of the can, poured a small amount of water, and applied heat with the lighter until it was a black sticky soup in the bottom of the can. He took out a Camel filtered cigarette and busted off the filter, balled up some of the cotton, and dropped it into the soup. He drew up half of the black liquid and handed the can to me. He injected the dope while I drew up the entire syringe, 100 units of dope. I injected half of it, capped the rig with the rest of it in it, and stashed it in my inside jacket pocket. Jack asked me for the lighter and lit the filterless cigarette in his mouth, and asked me to hand him his crutches. I opened the door and grabbed the crutches and walked around the car and handed them to Jack. He attempted to stand up, but the effects of the heroin he had just injected added to him only having one leg, plus his incessant rocking back and forth as a result of having not slept in close to 14 days, made the mere act of balancing next to impossible. He asked me for the leather jacket. I reached back and grabbed it and handed it to him. He sat back down in the driver's seat, put it on and smiled, and handed me one of the smaller balloons. I thanked him and suggested that we leave, since I had already seen the donut shop management scope us out through the back window for the third time, and it wouldn't be long before the guard arrived. He reluctantly agreed, but insisted we take another hit of crack first. We crossed over Market Street back into the Tenderloin. We were driving by the Warfield Hotel when Jack practically slammed on the brakes, rolled the window down, and began screaming at an orc standing on the sidewalk with some friends.
"You look just like the motherfucker that burned me the other day. I can't say for certain because I haven't slept in 2 weeks, but after I get some sleep, I'm gonna come back here and fuck you up."
The guy looked confused, rolled his eyes, and Jack slowly began cruising through the Tenderloin, yelling at anyone that remotely resembled the person that had ripped him off, which is to say that anyone with green skin he yelled at. The people waiting in line at Glide Memorial Church, he yelled at them. The people at Bodecker Park, he yelled at. The people waiting in line at the methadone clinic, he yelled at. I was about done with Jack when he drove back by the Warfield Hotel because he wanted to get another look at the fucker that may have beat him. Mind you, the Tenderloin is full of nothing but one-way streets, and how in his semi-conscious state he had made it this long without turning the wrong way onto one of these streets is nothing short of a miracle. But that streak of good fortune had just ended. He had just turned onto Taylor Street and spotted the guy and began his insane paranoid rant.
"I don't know for sure if it's you, but you look just like the motherfucker that burned me the other day."
"Dude, you're going the wrong way. This is a one-way street." Just then I heard a honk. In the lane next to us was a plain, unmarked blue sedan with 4 clean-cut looking guys in street clothes, but definitely the guard. I knew this because one of them was holding up a badge and pointing for us to pull over. No sooner had I informed Jack of the situation, first that he was driving the wrong way, and now that the guard wanted us to pull over, Jack immediately responded with,
"Fuck that."
He then floored it and turned the wrong way from Taylor onto Gary, and from Gary onto Leavenworth, all wrong turns onto one-way streets. The guard weren't matching our speed, but were nevertheless following close behind. We then proceeded on a series of wrong turns down one-way streets through the Tenderloin. By the time we reached Polk Street, you could clearly hear the sirens approaching. Jack really got a chance to open up the V8 in that Buick as we tore up Polk Street with 8 to 10 black and white squad cars and several unmarked narc cars, and the White Ghost roaring up behind us. I took the rig full of dope from my inside pocket and slammed it down through my jeans and injected it into my leg, pulled it out and broke the needle off and stashed it in the battery compartment of the boombox. I put the balloon I had in my mouth and pleaded with Jack just to pull over. "Dude, just pull over. You've got like 15 cops on our asses. We're not gonna get away."
"I told you when I picked you up that I wasn't going to jail. If the guard was after me, I was gonna run."
He continued to floor it up Ellis Street and turned onto Van Ness, swerved and drove over the median landscaped island, through the shrubbery and off the curb into the middle of Van Ness, and continued the wrong way into oncoming traffic. Up Van Ness, I continued to plead and attempt to reason with him. Dude, if you're not gonna stop, just slow down enough to let me jump out. He turned onto O'Farrell and roared towards Cathedral Hill, and Jack informed me of his plan.
I just want to get far enough ahead so that we can get out and run.
Dude, you can't run. You've only got one leg. You can barely stand up and walk, let alone run and escape from dozens of pursuing officers. We caught air at the top of the hill as he floored it. Upon landing, you could really hear the engine hum over the sound of the mini sirens following us. We caught air at every intersection as we burned down the hill, running red lights. I remember thinking we're so lucky that it's like 7 a.m. on Sunday morning, when all I saw was the white side of a pickup truck square in the middle of the intersection at Webster. We T-boned it doing like 80 miles an hour. Then all I saw was the white of the airbags deploying. My head hit the dash through the airbag, and when I opened my eyes, I saw the devastation. The crushed hood of the Buick sticking out of the side of the pickup truck, broken glass and smoke rising from both cars. I quickly got out of the car and laid down on the asphalt and spread eagle to wait for the guard to arrive. They arrived about 30 seconds later and had to pull the belligerent Jack screaming from the vehicle. I told the cops, I just met this guy. He was gonna buy a leather jacket for me. I kept telling him to pull over. They cuffed us both and put us in the back of a paddy wagon and drove us 2 blocks to the police station. In Jack's mind, I was now the enemy since I wasn't on board with his escape plan, and spouted obscenities the whole way there. They took us to the station, separated us, shackled me to a bench, and left me there for 2 hours. This I didn't mind, as I had done so much dope that I just comfortably nodded the whole time. Finally, they pulled me into an interrogation room and grilled me for like 2 hours. They couldn't believe that he had such a small amount of dope, but went on this high-speed chase. It didn't add up. I tried to explain that having not slept in 2 weeks, he had tunnel vision, and all he could think was, I've got to get away from the guard, no matter what. Eventually, they accepted my story and let me go. Jack wasn't so lucky. They kept him on multiple charges. So it was 11:30 a.m. on a beautiful Sunday morning. The sun was shining, I had a nice buzz, and I was a free man. I also had enough merchandise stashed in the bushes at the California State Building to put some coin in my pockets. So I headed up Gary Street, past Cathedral Hill, and turned onto Van Ness. When I passed Eddy Street, I saw the dealer I had dealt with a few hours earlier with Jack, and told him that I'd be back in about an hour to purchase some more of his product as soon as I picked up some coin. When I got to McAllister, I saw a huge crowd gathered. There was news crews with cameras, and the guard had caution tape strung up around the California State Building. I thought out loud, what the fuck is going on here? I need to go right over there, across the street. I got my shit stashed in the bushes on the other side where that tape is. I started across the street when a member of the guard directing traffic stopped me. Sir, you can't go over there. Please turn around. Excitedly, I responded, Officer, I just need to go over there and retrieve my briefcase I stashed in the bushes last night. The guardsman dropped his bullhorn and gripped his sidearm, looked me dead in the eye, and demanded, What did you say? I said I need to go get my briefcase I stashed in the bushes last night. He grabbed me by the arm and began dragging me to the other side of the street. Come with me. We approached the guard commander, who was directing some members of the SWAT team that had arrived in several large SUVs, and a man with a remote control and something that looked like a small triangular Imperial droid. Tell him, the guardsman began hurriedly. Commander, tell the commander what you told me. I said, I need to get my briefcase I stashed in the bushes. It's right over there. It'll only take me a second, and I'll be out of here. The commander, looking very concerned, responded to me. You say you put a briefcase in the bushes? Where is it, and what's in it? It's right over there. A couple of books, a sushi bento box, a brass Buddha. Can you show us where it is? Sure. He grabbed me by the shoulder and pushed me towards the building, and then hurried me along. Come on, you're over here with us. He nervously looked around to see who was watching. I led them behind the wall on the long tiled ramp where I had hid my briefcase. Can you all go over to the case and open it up and show us what's in it? Sure. I was confused, but it was slowly starting to make sense. I happily walked over to the shrubbery where my briefcase was stashed and opened it up. They nervously stayed back about 20 feet and shouted for me to turn the case around and show me the contents. I did and lifted up one of the books and held it up for them to see. They quickly strode over and examined the contents of the briefcase and then angrily reprimanded me. So I know you guys are doing dope back here on the ramp. You better let everyone know that it's over. This is a hot spot from now on. You can't be hanging out here anymore. And you just need to get the fuck out of here. Don't stop and talk to anyone. Just quickly leave the area and don't come back here, or we'll place you under arrest for terrorism. So I took the briefcase and began a brisk walk towards Church Street to the secondhand bookstore. As I passed the SWAT team, camera crews, and bomb squad, I couldn't help but think to myself, they have no idea that I'm the one that not only caused but saved the city from the devastation and apocalyptic level destruction that certainly would have been the result if a brass Buddha, sushi bento box, and 3 coffee table books had gone unchecked.